Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're very excited that you can join us. Our topic today is International Demand Trends and Challenges from Sub-Saharan Africa with Nigeria and Ghana in focus. Next slide, please, Carolyn. Thank you. And just before I introduce the speakers, my name is Dharma Naik. I'm the head of client success for the US with IDP Connect. I am based on the East Coast in the US, and I'm joined by some lovely colleagues from around the globe. We have Yomi Ashade. He's our manager for emerging markets, currently based out in Canada. We have Nadozi Martins Ebe. He's our country manager in Nigeria. So welcome, Martins. And Marie Selacheche, who's our country manager in Ghana. So Marie, welcome and thanks for taking the time. Now, many of you may be familiar with IDP. For those who are not, we are a leading and trusted global leader in international education, and we partner with various institutions to help you with your recruitment plans and expand your reach across the world. So Carolyn, next slide, please. Some of the ways in which we do this, one is providing consultancy and data services through our IQ services, marketing through our various comprehensive websites, both Hot Courses and IDP. And what we will be focusing on today is the recruitment and how we help you on the ground in the vast array of global countries where we have IDP offices and counselors present. Now, this is just to show you a quick snapshot of what is IDP's global reach. Where are we? And we do this both physically and through digital recruitment. Thank you, Carolyn. So the yellow is the countries where we send students to. And obviously, we are talking about the US today as a very popular destination. Blue is where we have digital presence through our various websites, so we can also help you outreach to different territories. And red is where we have both our physical offices and digital presence. And this also includes Nigeria and Ghana, which we are talking about today specifically. Now, the agenda, we will talk about why Africa. Naomi will take you through our footprint in Africa, and then we will hand it over to Marie and Martins to really deep dive into the Nigerian and Ghanaian markets and things that maybe you are aware of and other things that you can consider as you look to recruit or expand your recruitment in these two important countries. And we will come back with Yomi giving market recommendations and leave time at the end for questions and answers. So when we talk about Africa, when we thought about doing this webinar, the question is why? And some of the things that I wanted to share is that when you think about the world's young population, by 2050, a third of them will be living in Africa. The median age currently in Africa is 19. So definitely part of the target market and segment, perhaps for many of your institutions. And within the next decade, Africa is poised to have the world's largest workforce, surpassing China and India. So when we think strategically, when we think about the importance of Sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana, I think it cannot be underscored enough. Thank you, Carolyn. So I am going to hand it over to Yomi. Thank you so much, Yomi.
Thank you, Dana, for that run-through. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. So the data you are looking at here is from our over 100 million visits to our global interconnected website annually. And we've seen some shift in demand due to policy changes in the UK and Canada. And this shift in demands is actually, actually leading to an increase in demand for the US as a destination. So the source market, we can see the highest demand for the US include Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and Algeria. Next slide. So this is just to run through our footprints in Africa. For the purpose of this webinar, we will be talking about Nigeria and Ghana. Kenya will not be part of it, but however, we would like to also inform you that we have an office in Kenya. So in Kenya, we've got one office in Nairobi, and we've got 6 counselors in total, with 2 dedicated US counselors in that region. For Ghana, we've got 3 offices, with 2 in Accra and 1 in Kumasi, and we also have a virtual presence with somebody manning our virtual operation. In Nigeria, we have the largest operation in Africa with 8 offices, 3 offices in Lagos alone, and we have 12 US counselors. So I'll pass it on to Martins to delve deeper into Nigeria for us. Martins is the country manager for Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Yomi, and thanks everyone for joining in. For Nigeria specifically, I mean, for some of you, you may know that Nigeria is the largest economy in Sub-Saharan Africa, officially known as the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with about 36 states and a federal capital territory where the capital, Abuja, is located. The country has a population of over 200 million people, with more than half of the population under 35 years and over 250 ethnic groups speaking 500 distinct languages. However, the 3 largest ethnic groups that dominate are the Yoruba in the west, the Hausa in the north, and of course the Igbo in the east. Together, I mean, these 3 dominating ethnic groups constitute over 60% of the total population. In terms of economy of the country, Nigeria economy was majorly driven by energy and oil and gas. However, in 2015, the Nigeria economy was able to diversify somewhat to non-oil sector, and the non-oil sector contributed around 95.3% to the Nigerian GDP in the latest 3 months of the year 2023. This was, of course, majorly fueled by the industries such as financial institutions, telecommunication, agriculture, trade, construction, manufacturing, and of course, the real estate, which seem to be booming at this time. On the topic of government, the Nigerian government has actually enjoyed consistently a democratic system of government since democracy came on board, with the Action People's Congress, popularly known as APC, as the ruling party, and of course with strong opposition from Labour Party and People's Democratic Party, respectively. On the education front, the Nigerian population value education a lot and believe in the transformative power of education to the society. And this, of course, has birthed what I would call crop of students that are of good quality. Now, moving on to challenges, of course, we can't talk about strengths and opportunities without delving into the challenges. There are, of course, key challenges that seem to affect student recruitment to the US destination. And top on the list from the Nigerian point of view is the currency devaluation. This has resulted in high inflation, which has pushed a lot of Nigerians into multidimensional poverty. And of course, insane exchange rates, both at the parallel market, what we call locally the black market, and of course, the commercial bank level, with one USD exchanged currently at 1,600 and 1,350 Naira, respectively. This is, of course, coming from roughly about 650 to 700 Naira, same time last year. So this is quite very frustrating. And we're hoping that the federal government would, put together a more strategic approach towards resolving this key challenge. In addition to that, we also have the issue of visa appointment challenge, which is not helpful. A typical visa appointment wait period, it's about 6 months if you're applying from Nigeria, which could be very frustrating for Nigerian students. However, the good thing is if you are able to bag the visa appointment and you attend the interview, the decision is made almost immediately, and then the passport copy of the international student is returned 2 weeks after the visa approval. And of course, finally, the Nigerian market records a high volume of rejection, and we see a lot of this rejection tied to postgraduate applicants, with very commendable visa success rates for undergraduate cohorts. Now, in terms of nuances and trends, basically, the Nigerian market or population is actually driven by family or relationship driven, so to say. Now, what do I mean by this? A lot of Nigerian students, they tend to, travel overseas with their family members. One of the key reasons is Nigerians have a tradition of having their family members celebrate their failures and successes. And, they kind of tend to, want their family members to also be a part of their growth and experience. And this is one of the reasons why we see high volume of international students from Nigeria consider overseas education at the destinations that welcome international students with dependents. We have seen that with the UK, even though that seems to have come to an end, unfortunately, given the policy change that took effect January 2024. Furthermore, the Nigerian market is traditionally a late market. This may not be news to a number of people who already understand the Nigerian market. So for institutions looking to make entry into the Nigerian market, you need to consider to wear your coat of perseverance and patience, and also show some consideration, when it comes to setting of deadlines, be it for application or be it for I-20 issuance. In terms of options, destination options, we still find the UK top on the list for Nigerian students in terms of demand, despite the policy change. However, we have seen the US destination strongly compete with the UK and the Canada destination. Again, Nigeria is majorly postgraduate driven, so you are likely to see more applications, more interest, and more confirmations to PG subjects, more than the UG subjects, basically. And of course, we have also started to see increasing rise in the number of private high schools and sixth form colleges in the country. What we have seen following the recruitment boom period is, the rise in these high schools festered all over the cosmopolitan cities in Nigeria, majorly Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, as well as Ibadan. Now, we have also noticed that Nigerian parents seem to be a little bit more comfortable, a decent number of Nigerian parents seem to be more comfortable to have their kids, especially the undergraduates, study their international foundation program or any intermediary program at these sixth form colleges, get to experience the culture in Nigeria more and, get to a certain level of maturity before they are pushed overseas for the continuation of their studies at undergraduate levels. On the topic of opportunities, I must say for free that there are indeed a lot of opportunities for US institutions looking to make entry into the Nigerian market. First, you would have access to the booming middle and elite class. And if you look at the statistics, you will see that from the Nigerian point of view, the middle and elite class constitute the population of Nigerians that travel overseas for studies. However, like I said earlier, it would require a lot of groundbreaking, a lot of ground tilling, and investment in brand awareness, basically, to win the population, to gain the trust of the population, before you can start reaping your returns on the investment. So this may take typically up to 2 to 3 years to accomplish, depending on your product and what you have on offer. Again, the Nigerian nation basically ranks 10th on the international student leading place of origin. What does this simply mean? It simply means that Nigeria is indeed the hub, for student recruitment for anybody who sees that opportunity. We see over 70,000 Nigerians studying abroad in 2023, out of which over 14,000 are in the US. That's a decent number, looking at the volume of students going to other destinations. And there are also great opportunities, of course, for institutions to collaborate very closely with IDP, given IDP's footprint in the Nigerian markets, and of course, the IDP's physical presence in top cosmopolitan cities in the country. Like Yomi mentioned in his rendition, we have 8 physical offices across 6 key cities in the country. and a virtual presence in a smaller city within the northern part of Nigeria known as Nasarawa. So what does this portend for prospective institutions looking to make entry into the Nigerian markets? There are opportunities to connect with the IDP specialist counselors. We have about 12 in total across the 8 physical offices. And these counselors are basically recruited to support recruitment to the US destination specifically. So there are opportunities to have these counselors properly trained, well equipped, to be able to in turn promote your products and services to the audience within the Nigerian territory. In addition to that, there are good opportunities to collaborate with IDP on marketing, lead generation campaigns, all right, leading to good quality lead generation, as well as opportunities to collaborate with IDP on conversion activities, that would also help with conversion efforts year on year. And as a matter of fact, institutions can also benefit from the IDP's footprint in the market by joining the IDP Study World Expos. We have the destination-focused Study World Expos. We also have the multi-destination version of that coming up in September this year, 2024. On the 18th to be precise for the Abuja leg, and of course on the 21st for the Lagos leg. And I would like to mention that for institutions that may be worried about, safety, security in the country, I mean, there are, of course, places to actually be worried about. However, the key cities in the country where we take our events to are relatively safe for recruitment activities. The likes of Lagos, which is the commercial hub of the country, and of course, Abuja, which is the administrative hub, as well as Port Harcourt, which is also a good cosmopolitan city. So indeed, there are opportunities for institutions really looking to make entry into Nigeria, riding on the IDP presence and footprint within the Nigerian society. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are quite a number of subject mix, and of course, top subjects in demand for Nigerian students. We have observed that over time, Nigerian students, moved away from opting to do traditional subjects to specialist subject areas that will position them for global employment opportunities. So we have seen a decent rise in demand areas such as business and management at 11.4%, engineering at 19.5%, health professions at 12.4%, math and computers at 14.6%, physical and life sciences at 15.9%. And of course, the study levels indicate undergraduate at 31%. And like I mentioned earlier, postgraduate having a larger share at 50%, while the optional practical training at 16.7%. Now, this, followed the opportunities that came with the COVID and post-COVID era as well. Next slide, please. So we'll kind of emphasize the growth we have seen from different cities in Nigeria. And I talked about Lagos being the commercial hub. So based on the IDP data and where we see the highest traction in terms of demand for international education, and of course, based on the subject mix, we have Lagos top on the list at 62.63%. I mean, that is a clear indication that there are indeed opportunities, to recruit Nigerian students from Lagos cosmopolitan city. The drive, the interest, the volume of interest from Lagos city is quite very massive, strongly followed by Abuja at 18.10%. Then we have Port Harcourt at 10.76%, Federal Capital Territory at 2.57%, Benin City, Ibadan, Enugu, Kano, respectively. And the fantastic news is that IDP has physical operations in virtually all these cities highlighted, aside Benin City. Now we have 3 physical offices in Lagos, and strategically, located and accessible to the right audience we need for the type of offerings that you may have. And in terms of subject level demand, I mean, this is a very important area to pay close attention to. I mean, if you look at from the top to the bottom, you would see that health and medicine seem to have the highest traction coming from these confines. followed by business and administrative studies. What does this simply mean? It means that institutions making entry into the Nigerian market, projecting this subject, are likely to get good return on investment and, a very fantastic outcome in terms of student recruitment. We have applied and pure sciences at 13.80%, and social studies and communications, 13.33%, computer and mathematical science, engineering and technology, education and training, creative arts and design, agriculture and related subjects, and of course, architecture, building and planning. These are the subjects in demand from within the confines, and we would strongly recommend institutions looking to break entry into the market to consider pushing out strategically these subjects, with the mindset of recruiting good quality Nigerian students into those schools. Thank you so much for listening, and I will hand over to Maria at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Martins. So I'll start off Ghana with our strengths. Basically, I'll touch on the economy and then I'll move to the little bullet points that we have on your screen. So Ghana is the second largest economy in West Africa. And we are also credited as being one of the most stable democracies in Africa. I mean, having successfully conducted 8 national elections and recorded no incidents of a coup d'etat since 1992. We are also a very fairly young population. We are blessed with a very youthful population of about 67% of the population within the age of 15 to 64. Also, the government's initiative, such as free basic and secondary education, has ensured that about 70% of the population, has high literacy rates for citizens also between the ages of 6 years and older, as at 2021. We also have about 18,000 plus students that are currently studying abroad. Now, for Ghanaian students, they invest heavily in overseas education. A typical Ghanaian would shop around for various study destinations, offering them international qualification, cultural diversity, among others. The country also boasts of a very rich agriculture. We are endowed with vast arable lands, rich in agriculture. So in 2020, for example, we were the second largest producer of cocoa in the world and the 4th largest producer of cassava in the world. For another strength we have for Ghana is the demand for education, which is on the rise. Ghanaians have a good appetite for international education and diversity, and as such, families invest heavily in sending their children overseas to study, and especially US as a top destination for many Ghanaian students. Just as we have strengths, we also have challenges that affect recruitment to the USA. The first being affordability. I mean, the country has, the Ghana cedi, our currency, has suffered a record-breaking, weakening cycle recently. The cedi is Africa's 3rd worst performing currency since January 2024, and has become the 3rd worst performing currency, depreciating by about 8.63, nearly 9% against the US dollars. In terms of scholarships, yes, it's a major challenge for Ghanaian students because of the struggling economy. The cedi is depreciating so much that it makes studying overseas very expensive. And so you have a typical Ghanaian student applying and looking for about 50 to 100% scholarship in order to pursue their studies in the US. We also started with the issue of visa rejection. The refusal rate is quite high due to the subjective nature of the visa process in Ghana. So a typical Ghanaian student will be sponsored by an extended family member, for example, and when they are interviewed, usually they have to explain how many family members the sponsor has and other dependents that they are sponsoring. And if it's quite a large number, they tend to be refused a visa. We also challenged by the fact that visa appointments you need to apply about 6 months in advance to be able to secure entry for example, for September this year. If you are enrolling in September, you should have, put in your application by January. And being a late market, most people would rather be in the position to put in their visa applications about this time when they are sure about funding. In terms of macroeconomic stability issues, following the crisis we experienced in 2022, we witnessed some improvements in economic conditions throughout last year. However, there've been some persistent challenges that have remained, notably characterized by inflation, subdued growth, and substantial pressure on public finances and debt sustainability. For politics, this year, something that we have remarkably happening in Ghana is we're going to the polls this December 7. We will be electing a new president and new leaders in parliament. And the challenge is just that Ghanaians heavily depend on scholarships, and with the government agencies who have the tendency of funding students fully in terms of paying for their tuition, paying for their living expenses, their air ticket, there's 100% funding. The trend or the historic trend is that usually with the government being in power for 8 years, we tend to change the political party to a new one. And so usually in Ghana this year, being the 8th year of the sitting president, is very likely that the coffers might be empty by now. And so students might not have the chance to benefit from full scholarship this year. Moving on to the nuances, we have a binary education structure. This structure includes applied higher national diploma programs offered mostly by polytechnics, respectively technical universities, as well as bachelor's, master's, doctoral degrees offered by a wide array of universities. We also have good tech incubators in Ghana. We also have a strong academic family tradition. So the average Ghanaian would have gone through formal primary and secondary education, followed by tertiary. So you have a family that are, educated to that level to ensure that their children also benefit, to go and study overseas. Ghana is predominantly a postgraduate market. We have a lot of private and public tertiary institutions. So the average Ghanaian would have already completed their bachelor's degree and then be looking to pursue further education overseas. Now, having talked about the strengths, the challenges, the nuances, I would also like to touch more on the opportunities that we have. It's interesting to see that Ghana is now a top 25, is one of the top 25 countries sending students to study abroad. With US being like a popular destination. So Education USA, in partnership with the US Embassy, have been quite intentional in promoting studies in the US to Ghanaian students. So the Education USA, for example, resumed in-person advising services by appointment. And they have 2 offices in Ghana. We have one in the US Embassy in Accra, and then one in Kumasi. Education USA also recently held a college universities fair. That was September last year, which was very well attended. There was a lot of campaign here and there, lots of noise being made, and it was heavily attended by Ghanaian students. So the US Embassy has the purpose to open up Ghanaian students to tertiary education in the US. And it is only clear that US colleges and universities are also eager to welcome more Ghanaian students because of the diversity, both intellectual, cultural, that they bring to the US classrooms, It's also interesting to know that last year's Open Doors reports confirmed that more than 4,900 Ghanaians studied at about 600 US colleges and universities across all 50 states during the 2021-22 academic year. Again, the Open Doors report on international student mobility also affirmed the US as the preferred destination for Ghanaian students, reporting that about nearly 6,500 Ghanaian students studied at the US higher institutions during the 2022-23 academic year. Now, this represents a 31.6% increase, an all-time high growth trend among Ghanaian students. Notably, Ghana also entered the top 25 places of origin for the first time in Open Doors history, placing 2 great Sub-Saharan African countries in the top 25 places of origin. And again, Ghana ranks 23rd globally for study in the United States and 14th in the world for sending students to the US for graduate programs. Another opportunity we have is Get Fund. Having touched on the fact that this year is an election year, and we might not see government sponsoring a lot, but after the new government comes in, usually after 2 years, they're in the position to sponsor. So Get Fund is the main government body that sponsors students to go and pursue studies overseas. This covers the tuition, it covers the living expenses, they pay for their flights and all that. And so a typical student who wouldn't have funds to go and study overseas would usually apply to this board with the hope of securing full scholarship to go and study. In terms of quality applications, yes, given the free senior high school education that we currently have in Ghana, most students would have obtained the West African secondary school qualification and be in the position to apply for bachelor's degree in colleges and universities in the US. And I would say that the quality of applications is quite high. A lot of Ghanaians who want to study bachelor's programs in the US would have privately arranged for special tuition to work on the SAT so they can secure full scholarships, to study in the US. So that's also something good, and they tend to achieve really high scores. Anyone who is really eager to study would usually attend this SAT exam about 3 or 4 times, and it's also interesting to see that even if they do not get their funding to start immediately, and after enrolling in university, maybe in their 2nd or 3rd year, and they try again and they get it, they still abandon their studies here and then want to go to the US to start from year 1. Again, the free SHS policy, as I said, a lot more students would have gotten free tuition to complete the secondary high school level, and so will be in the position to apply to go and study in the US. Another point to state, as my colleague Martin said, is that we also have a good presence in Ghana. We have 3 offices in Ghana. We have 2 in Accra and 1 in Kumasi, with the 3rd opening in Takoradi by December this year. And so our doors are open to all our clients to come in for recruitment activities. And also very similar, same as Nigeria, we also have destination-focused counselors. These are counselors that have been trained to specialize in recruiting students to the US. And we have 2 US counselors in each of our offices currently helping to promote US education. I also like to say that we have the opportunity to engage in the markets at our upcoming expo, which is in Accra on the 14th of September, and then in Kumasi, which is the 2nd city after Accra, on the 16th of September. So if you're looking to engage more in the market, you can reach out to us to assist you with that. Can I have the next slide, please? So the subject and study level breakdown, the top courses that Ghanaian students will be looking to study is very similar to Nigeria. Business and management at 25%, engineering also at 15%, humanities also similar to engineering, maths, computer science, physical and life sciences also around 15%. I mean, these study levels indicate that undergraduate at 22% and graduate at 61%, and then the optional practical training at 5. Very similar to Nigeria, Ghana is a postgraduate market, and so you see that we have a larger chunk looking at postgraduate level. Next slide, please. So the subject, the breakdown, city level demand, Accra being the capital, everything happens in Accra. So if you come out here, most exhibitions will be held in Accra with, you know, a little, you know, mop-up activity, which will be extended to Kumasi being the second city. So everything pretty much happens in Accra. And then in terms of the subject level demand, we do see a lot of interest in health and medicine, followed by business and administrative studies. STEM courses are very popular in Ghana as well. A lot of students want to move into STEM area, and so you have interest in that. So when you're coming out to this market, this is what it looks like. And so you might want to harness on what your institution offers. And then when you come out to engage with the market, you make sure that you pick out these subjects and make sure that whatever package you have in terms of scholarship offerings, subject-specific offerings, you can tie it with these. So that's it from Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Martins, for that context. So here I would be going through the market engagement recommendations. Because I know that our time is fast spent, I would move a bit quickly so I can leave some time for Q&A at the end. So for any institution entering the West African region from international student recruitment, I mean, especially if you're investing and for the first time, you're not seeing that proceed in terms of the number of conversions or student numbers going up the way you expect, it takes time to engage that market and see results, you know, and that has been proven historically by, you know, institutions that are, you know, taking the whole long haul and been in that market for a while, you know, so definitely it takes time. You are doing the right thing by investing. You are doing the right thing by attending fairs, webinars, you know, you are doing the right thing by engaging with the markets. But note that, you know, it takes time to see results. And that's for institutions that are just initially investing into that region, you know, and then while you are also investing in that region, you know, it also, you know, also trickles into other things like brand awareness building, relationship, I mean, engagement with stakeholders, you know, it takes time for all these things to come together and we cannot have the kind of boom that we expect, even though we know that there are challenges, but it's important for us to let you know that it takes time for things to happen in that market. Next slide, please. So just as Martins and Marie has laid down some of the challenges in the market, you know, I mean, it's quite obvious that, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility that is needed to engage this market, basically, especially in Nigeria and Ghana, where there are, for instance, you know, it takes time for students to get their academic transcript from institutions to get it sent to, you know, IDP office or sent directly to universities. That takes time. It takes time for funding to be arranged, basically. So all these things, you know, actually points to the fact that institutions that are engaging with the markets, you know, need to be a bit flexible in their approach. You know, they probably wouldn't expect students to get, you know, their transcripts sent across instantly. There might be delays, you know, because the international student journey from Nigeria and Ghana, you know, is bedeviled with a lot of challenges, you know, which Martins and Maria have spoken to. Also, another important point I need to mention here is the transfer of funds, you know, especially tuition fee. I know that in Nigeria, we've had a lot of challenges, especially with the devaluation of the Naira and the Forex being scarce, you know. There was a time that, you know, international student has to be on queue for a form called Form A in Nigeria, which I think Martins can buttress that point. You know, it takes, you know, and it could take like really probably by the time a parent gets to the bank, they say you're on number 1,000 or 900, you know, and meanwhile, you're trying to pay for your student that want to resume in September. Maybe probably you're trying to make payment around June. I mean, it shows that all these factors impact, you know, conversion on that particular, you know, funding system. Next slide, please. Diversity and inclusion. So I mean, one of the things that, I would recommend is that I know that seats get quickly filled up in institutions, especially for courses that are in hot demand all over the world. But because of the peculiarity of the challenges we have with Africa, could there be a situation whereby seats could be reserved for African students, knowing that they still have to go through a number of challenges before they come through, especially the visa hurdles, the finance hurdles, Apart from, reserving seats, some educational institutions have adopted successful strategies to support the well-being of African students on their campuses, basically. And this is an approach that, most universities are already doing, but more could be done in that area. Additionally, institutions have worked with community leaders to make it easier for African students to integrate into the campus community. Next slide, please. Brand ambassadors and success stories. We know that success stories attract potential international students. So for instance, if you have, African students that have obviously graduated from your institutions, there might be, an opportunity for you to engage them to become brand ambassadors. Sometimes when you are holding alumni events or conversion events, these brand ambassadors can come around to speak about their leading experiences while they were in institutions. This helps students to convert more within the region. Next slide. So these are the 4 pillars of marketing strategy that I will be recommending. I probably will be delving more into stakeholder engagement. The other 3 pillars, I believe, is something that, if institutions want to know more about that, we could engage IDP services. IDP runs a service called IQ services, where we use, insight and data analytics, to curate or prefer solutions to institutions based on the objective within the market that they want to go into. Next slide, please. So for stakeholder engagement, now some of the stakeholders we have in Nigeria and Ghana include the private secondary schools, private fifth form colleges, private higher institutions. I mean, they are private because, in private institutions, that's where you have, parents with the propensity to be able to pay because of the higher class level, the higher social strata within that institution itself. And of course, we have scholarship boards. Maria have touched on the GET Fund. Of course, in Nigeria, we have the PTDF, which is the Petroleum Trust Fund. There's so many other, scholarship boards that, institutions can engage with. And we know that, funding can be a bit problematic, but as soon as the economy starts doing well, institutions that have such relationship ongoing will benefit, And then, of course, media and other influencers is also point to, I think a lot of institutions are already, already have brand ambassadors, basically. I think doing more of this will also help, in enhancing conversion. Potential international students and the parents and sponsors, direct, webinars that engages students directly is also encouraged within that market, basically, because it helps to be able to convert students who are actually still researching, because, Nigeria and Ghana is a very competitive market, given the influx of different institutions from different parts of the world going into that market as well. So it helps them to be able to focus when you have such webinars ongoing regularly. Of course, the age bracket of students that we're looking for is already between 16 and 40. Beyond 40, you're probably looking at students that are looking at the research. Of course, historically, we know that a lot of them don't get their visas. So we have to focus within that age bracket of 16 to 40. High schools and university graduates could be public or could be private as well. And then early to mid-career adults in urban and semi-urban areas. I think this is the final slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So just like Martins and Marie pointed out, we have offices in both countries. We would encourage you to engage our offices, especially when you're planning to come into the country or to do activities, so that we can have a synergy and we can recruit more students and convert them together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yomi, Marie, Martins. That was a lot of information, I think, to share with everyone. We have had some questions coming in, so I'm going to get right to them, and you can answer as we go along. So the first question says that we have a high number, actually hundreds of undergraduate applications from Nigeria and Ghana. However, many of them do not submit English proficiency and end up being an incomplete application. And this makes our admit and yield numbers down to single digits. Do you have suggestions on how we can help institutions address this? So Marie or Martins, whoever would like to go first.
Martins, do you want to comment?
Okay, yeah, so let me go first. All right, so when it comes to English proficiency, it's always a very serious topic in Nigeria, because a lot of Nigerians feel that given that Nigeria is an English-speaking country, English also being the official language, a lot of Nigerians feel that, oh, if I studied from nursery to basic to secondary and post-secondary, do I really need this? And there seems to be like a trend in Nigeria where Nigerian students really apply to not just one school, all right? Nigerian students have this practice of, applying to multiple institutions. And the reason for this perhaps is just to make sure that they exhaust all options, they don't put their eggs in one basket, and hopefully settle for the particular institution that makes them an offer in good time. So processing time for applications is also very key. Now, what can we do, as IDP to ensure that students do the needful and in good time is simple. First, making sure that students understand the requirements for the program that they are applying to, which is what our counselors, our focus counselors do from start. So during the counseling session, it's a part of the discussions that they have, at that preliminary stage, and during the profiling of the student, because we do the profiling of the students, we try to ensure that, given the rigor and the processes it takes, to support students from start to finish, we want to be sure that we're supporting the right students. We want to be sure that we're also supporting the students who will get through to the end. So we try to inform them from the beginning to let them know what they need to put together in preparation for an application to any of the institutions they're looking to apply to. That's one of the steps. Now, when direct applicants apply to institutions, sometimes they're in doubt. They don't know whether they need to really do the English test, all right? That's the disadvantage of having those direct applications. But if these applications come through IDP, the counselors take it upon themselves, all right, to make sure that the students understand those requirements before they get into the application stage. So that's one step. I won't stop saying this. It's important to really collaborate with IDP to minimize the risk, that risk of having those volume of applications, and at the end of the day, having them drop to single digits. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Martins. Marie, is there anything you wanted to add from your perspective to that question?
Very similar to Ghana. Martins has said it all, and I think his answers would also speak to Ghana as well.
All right, thank you. So the next question, more specifically for Martins, is for Nigeria, are there safety concerns for in-person recruitment travel? And related to that, how far in advance should an institution or an individual apply for a visa to Nigeria? Because they've heard that the visa processing times can be lengthy. So both related to travel, but different aspects.
So on that specifically, I would say that things have improved from last year. Last year was chaotic. The visa rejection rate was, terrifying. There are two processes, basically. You could do visa on arrival, or you could also apply, given at least, I would say, apply ahead, 2 months ahead to any planned travel dates to Nigeria. That would give the High Commission enough time to process the visa application. If there are back and forth, that would also be room, there would be some time to entertain that. So 2 months ahead, if you are looking to apply for a Nigerian visa, or you look at the visa on arrival option. The only concern I have with the visa on arrival option is sometimes the process is not straightforward. I know a couple of people that try out it with ease, and I know a couple of people that also met some blockers in the process. So the safest, which I would strongly recommend, would be applying ahead and allow at least 2 months to the travel date.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Martins. So a question that maybe Marie can answer first, and then I'll come back to you, Martins. So what would you recommend in terms of marketing materials for promotion to your respective markets? Is it digital? Is it physical? Are we looking at brochures, one page? And, aside from that, what is popularly used in your countries? Is it WhatsApp? Are there other social media platforms that are preferred? If you could maybe give some insight to our institutions about that, the best way to communicate with the students.
Okay, so for Ghanaian students specifically, it's a mix of everything. Heavily on we are very heavy on social media, and I would say that continuous engagement on social media, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Google search, placing all your adverts on Google search and all of that, LinkedIn would help attract the right students to your institutions. For undergraduate students, for visiting all these international schools, high school, they tend to want physical brochures where they can stock in their libraries for students to walk in. When they're going to study, they can just walk to the shelf and pick a brochure and go through. Whereas postgraduate students will be doing more of digital stuff, going online, and also for relying on us agents to send them the relevant links to download all these materials to learn about your institutions. So that's another way to address that. Yeah. Thank you.
Martins, anything else you would add to that, perhaps?
Okay, yes. So it's pretty similar, a mix of all. However, I tell people that are two major audiences. I mean, when it comes to student recruitment in Nigeria, you're looking at the student demographic and then the parent demographic. Now, the majority of the parent demographic are not tech savvy, so you need to do a bit of this and a bit of that to ensure that you are getting to the audiences, and then you are also connecting accordingly. Now, when it comes to brochure, yes, we ask that brochures be made available. However, bulky brochures are not usually very helpful. It's unfortunate that Nigerians, they really wouldn't have all that time to, go through everything. So we advise that you keep your brochure simplified, focus on those key things. I mean, my definition of a sustainable recruitment strategy is understanding that market and what the market wants, all right? So you already know what the market wants. Why don't you put out the key things that the market wants, highlighting on those benefits, and then making sure that the brochure that, gives them an overview of what to expect, the content and, the products are simplified and easy to go through. On the advertising front, I would say that the student demographic, you'll find more of them on the digital marketing space. They're the most popular in Nigeria. I would say WhatsApp and Instagram, they are the most popular. So you find the student demographic in those two major platforms. And we also advise people to do more of Google adverts, targeting, certain audience base. That's also a very good way to connect and reach out to the right audience. That's also something we call traditional advertising in the country, because you do not only need to reach out to the students, you need to also reach out to the parents. They're the ones who, in some cases, make the final decision. They're the ones who, at the end of the day, spend the money. So we encourage institutions to invest in traditional advertising in country, targeting those parents who are not tech savvy. Yeah, that's about my recommendation.
All right, thank you so much. We do have a lot of questions. I want to be mindful of time. A follow-up question to the earlier one. Some of the schools, what they're experiencing is that sometimes the students are not submitting financial documents on time, especially the self-supported students, which then leads into conversion issues. And then they also have a lengthy wait time for the visa process itself. So is there any advice or insights you could give to institutions who are facing that challenge? And again, how IDP could perhaps help them with that?
Okay,
so
perhaps,
yeah.
perhaps I could go first. All right, so for Nigeria specifically, there are different crop of students that we have. It's unfortunate that we still have, economic migrants who hide under the subterfuge of education. Sometimes it's difficult to even differentiate who is truly looking to study or who is just looking to ride on education to migrate into the US. Now, that is where we usually have that issue of bank statement and documentation. For a ready student who understands what they want, the destination they want to go to, in this case, the US, and who have actually put their plans in place, all right, they won't have difficulties, putting those funds together and then getting their bank statement ready. However, if you're dealing with the cohorts who are just probably looking for the best route out of the country, you are likely going to deal with people who are struggling with those funds, how to raise them, how to put them in the bank account, and then how to make the bank account statement available. The typical bank statement, all right, a Nigerian student is expected to provide to support their visa application should have the funds to cover the fees and the living expenses. And the bank statement is about a 3 to 4 months bank statement would suffice in this case. So the challenge here is most of these direct applicants, who are sometimes not well guided, all right, they don't know what to expect from start to the end of that process. So if you're dealing with those cohorts, you're likely going to, have such difficulties. But what we do differently in IDP, what our counselors do differently in IDP, because they understand, these nuances, they understand what to expect and, what to do for the students and how best to support them. They ensure that they highlight on the requirement, what these students need, the cost, they walk them through that cost. So if you're looking at XYZ institution, you need to know the cost, you need to know what the deposit requirement is, you need to know what the balance of the fees and the living cost should be, and you need to have those funds in your bank account. That's where the counselor will start asking questions around sponsorship, who is your sponsor, how is your sponsor going to raise those funds, and things like that. So those conversations happen at that early stage, that preliminary stage. It is at that point that the counselor will determine whether this is a junior student or this is just one of those students who are looking to, hopefully ride on education to migrate from Nigeria. So we try to clamp down on such situations and make sure that we push the funnel, those cohorts who are ready, to actually pursue their study abroad interest. So to really clamp down on this, it still boils down to working with the right set of minds, the right set of people, getting the best guidance. And I'll still bring it back to collaboration with IDP. And of course, any other recruitment organization you feel comfortable dealing with, to make sure that they're able to help you filter the time wasters and wither the chaff, from the serious students, so that you have minimal or less problems to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martins. I'm going to squeeze in 2 more quick questions before we end. So other than financial assistance and scholarships, what are Nigerian students seeking in their study abroad experience? And Marie, perhaps you could also add in from Ghana your perspective on this. So aside from these things, what attracts students from your countries to specific US institutions?
Very good question. All right, I would say that there are 4 or 5 factors that drive Nigerian students' decision to study in the US, and of course, any other destination. First is the quality of education. We still have those crop of students who are particular about the school they want to go to, all right? Those students already have in mind the school they want to, settle for. So quality is quite very important for Nigerian students. The multicultural environment is also a consideration. Of course, abundant opportunities, post-graduation opportunities, because majority of Nigerian students do not just want to spend all that millions of naira and then not have something to hold on to. So that's where the post-graduation opportunity comes into play. Nigerian students want to go to a university that will connect them to practical employment opportunities or practical, skill acquisition opportunities, so that they can be better positioned for global employment opportunities. So, that's also something that is quite very key. Access, of course, to good support from the institution. You're traveling to that country for the first time, you don't know anybody. So they want to be sure that the university or the college in question has a good support system for international students, coming from Nigeria. So these are really the key things that Nigerian students, would consider in settling for a university in the US.
Okay, thank you, Martins. Marie, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, from Ghanaian perspective, I would say that for a self-funded student, it will be price. If the institution is affordable and they're able to offer a significant amount of bursary or discount, then that would make their choice to settle on your institution. And again, post-study work opportunities, it's a lot of investment to come to your country to study. And as such, everyone wants to stay on after their studies, to work and, make it in life. So that is also a key factor to consider before settling on your institution. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one last quick question for all of you, and for all the other questions, we will endeavor to answer them in a follow-up communication to all of our attendees. So please be rest assured we will come back to you. The last question for Marie and Martins is, when is the best time to travel in Nigeria and Ghana? I know both of you have mentioned the upcoming roadshows and education fairs, but aside from that, what are good periods where institutions can plan around to visit?
Okay. For Nigeria, I would say if you're planning to visit Nigeria, you need to plan ahead. Of course, and if you're looking at a recruitment activity, you need to plan ahead, way ahead. So you don't plan a visit closer to the recruitment cycle, all right? So you need to make it way ahead so that you are able to understand the market, understand the territory, make sure you have your strategy in place, and then allow good time for promotions, allow good time for connections, for, recruitment activities before the actual recruitment cycle. So that's one recommendation. Secondly, avoid travels during elections in Nigeria, because sometimes it could be a bit chaotic. Elections in Nigeria, election period in Nigeria is not a good time, to travel, because you can never tell. I mean, there could be riots within where you are, and it may also affect you. So we try to protect the international community. I mean, we try to protect our visitors, so we advise them to avoid election period, And then again, month of December is not especially a good month to conduct recruitment activities in Nigeria, because within that month, everybody's just looking forward to the end of the year. People are already, making their way out of the country to celebrate Christmas and things like that. So, I mean, these will be my three recommendations as to when to travel.
Okay, so for Ghana, very similar to what Martin said for Nigeria. I mean, a good time to visit Ghana is during school session. So for the international schools, if you want to engage with the international schools, go in and meet the school counselors, meet the school principal, and interact with the students. It's good to visit when school is in session and when they are not on vacation. That's for the undergraduate markets, and also for PG is pretty much all year through. December is also a festive period, and so not ideal to visit. However, you should give ample time for the start of your programs, given that it's a late market and the time that it takes to get a visa. So you factor in the start of your program, how long it takes to get an offer, pay your deposit, get your I-20, and then put in your visa application. So I'll say about 6 months in advance. And if you have multiple entries, then that's good, because even if they cannot make it for the immediate entry, they can always choose the later one to join. Yeah. Ghana is also fairly stable. We don't have any issues all year through. So it's safe to visit us, and we're very welcoming. We look forward to meeting all of you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Martins, Marie, and Yomi. Unfortunately, we have to end the webinar because we're up to the hour. I will say we will share the contact information for our main offices in Nigeria and Ghana to everyone. And for those of you who are already partnered with us, you can reach out to your client success manager who is assigned to your institution, and they will help you navigate in terms of setting up office visits, whether they're virtual, physical, any trainings you would like to do. Would be happy to collaborate with you on that and ensure that you have visibility in the countries we have talked about. So again, thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you so much to all of our attendees. And we will follow up with a recording of this webinar also. So thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you.